Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. This one is on alignment. Alignment is a key principle in my coaching system, and I would say it is the key principle to really a fulfilling life. When we're in alignment, life happens for us. This is the ideal state to live, to be, and to act from. It's the basis of my whole coaching system because when we're in alignment, when we're in harmony, we can perceive opportunities. We can see the path, our authentic way to move through life. So this episode is about this concept of alignment. And I'll be going over some details, the nitty-gritties on how to fine-tune our alignment, how to optimize ourselves, because alignment is physical, emotional, energetic, mental. There's many different dimensions in our multi-dimensionality that we can fine-tune, I like that word, fine-tune, so that we can run optimally. So let me speak a little bit more about this concept of alignment so I can build out this idea, this concept. And it is universal in a sense that when we're aligned, we're in our center and we all have the same center. So it's universal in that sense. But each individual has a different experience of what their center is. So for me, alignment is the mode of operating, of being and relating to myself in the world where I perceive opportunities. So you can contrast all of these to determine what it feels like to be out of alignment. So when you're stressed, vision becomes like tunnel, opportunities seem null, the power is outside of yourself. When you're in alignment, opportunities galore. You feel like there's nowhere to go. I feel like there's nowhere to go. I feel there's no time pressure and I'm not in time. I'm not in mind in the ordinary way, as mind as limitation, as mind as the interface and primary decision making. The decisions are coming from inspired action. Because when I'm contrasting this with being out of alignment, there's a sense of urgency which stress contributes to. And to the degree I'm stressed is generally to the degree I feel like there's not enough time. And this builds a hurry in my external actions and in my internals. I feel less centered, present, and still, so that I can no longer truly take in the fullness of life through my being, through my felt sense experience. And I'm rushing as if I'm always behind or trying to get ahead. So alignment is timelessness and selflessness. To the degree I'm aligned is proportional to the degree at which my center, my true center, is where I'm acting from and not the ego center. The true authentic self is the center, which is the universal center of all centers. And when I'm acting out of alignment, I'm acting out of my conditioning. I'm acting from mind. I'm acting not from inspired action, but because I'm running off of belief systems that encourage me to think that I need to do this because of this and this and this. For example, when I first started running my business, I didn't know nothing about business. No one tutored me in business. I got like a day's mentorship from my mentor. I observed him, yes. But I really just jumped right in because I knew I wanted to do what I wanted to do, which was breath work at the time. And I just decided to step in and trusting that it was going to work out, which retrospectively would have been wise, would have been nice to take some business education, to have some kind of an understanding, maybe a business plan would have been nice. For certain it would have. But that's not the path I took. And I jumped in and I looked for what everybody else was doing. And I began to build a number of beliefs of what it is to be successful before I had that success. And I was basically just following what everybody else was doing because I didn't know any better. And because I was so overwhelmed with jumping into moving to a new city where I knew virtually nobody, starting a new business which virtually no one has ever heard of, and trying to get my foot on the ground so I had a foundation to move while I had just quit my job and finances was a thing. There wasn't much opportunity, so this sense of being trapped by time, being in the ego, and not taking inspired action, but going into survival mode thinking, where stress and cortisol and many hormones such as those were running my consciousness rather than feeling at ease with a regulated nervous system, which was interesting because I was teaching nervous system regulation, and it's not that I was completely dysregulated through this whole period. This was an initiation, a test of sorts. This was my opportunity to show that the practices, mostly for myself at this point, actually worked. So as I overcame these challenges, I began to strengthen my resolve, and I began to understand that the success of my business and the success of my whole life in its entirety was impinged. I hope that's the right word because it flowed out. It is impinged. It is comfortably placed to the degree that I am in alignment. So I began to take more and more time and devote it towards my alignment instead of doing what everybody else was doing in business. And yes, I've learned many good things from them, which I've applied and used judiciously. But my primary focus is alignment. When I started receiving teachings from multiple wisdom traditions, and I'll talk briefly about the yogic tradition and the indigenous tradition of the sun dance, I heard a similar teaching, a similar theme among both of those traditions. In the sun dance tradition, many of the dancers are given a chanupa, a sacred pipe. And the understanding with this sacred pipe is that it comes first. It comes before your family. It comes before your work. It comes before everything else. And the pipe is connection to spirit. Why connection to spirit above all else? Because it's the organizing principle of everything else. If you're in right relationship with spirit, everything else is taken care of. If the focus is anywhere else but that highest point, then the organization of mind, behaviors, and the alignment to you, your purpose, your dharma, of everything else isn't at its fullness. There's more to it. In the same teaching, I heard in a different way from the yogic traditions as the ultimate goal is realization, it's self-realization. Without this as the highest aim, all else falters. And one way of entering into that is, if you're practicing yoga asana and the yogic system to varying degrees without its entirety, without that highest goal, your ego may be practicing, and you may gain a certain level of power that comes with the practices as an individual becomes more the master of their body and mind. But if your goal isn't that highest aim of self-realization, which is another way of saying to become selfless, to learn to act not from the ego center, but from the universal center, which is the optimal choice. Because when we make decisions just for ourselves, they're selfish. And when we make decisions that are best for our families, community, for the earth, for everything in the cosmos, then they're from the self, but they're not selfish. They're self-serving. They're the self-serving the all. And in those actions, we can be in union. We can be in yoga. Because our actions and our intentions are connected to the all. And we can dissolve in that way. And this is the only true way to practice yoga. In its completion, in the complete system. All else isn't union. You can't be in union. The very definition of union, or the understanding, pardon me, is that the individual and the collective, the Atman and the Brahman, are yoked, are union, are in harmony. Harmony means to join. Harmony is a word that is often connected with the Taoists. The Taoists talk about the Tao, being in harmony with the Tao, with the universal order. The yogis talk about Dharma. Taoists talk about Tao. Buddhists talk about Dhamma, which is just the Pali word for the Sanskrit word Dharma. They're all expressing something very similar, just as the indigenous are expressing that spirit comes first with the Chanupa. There is a universal truth, though it's expressed in the various different wisdom traditions and even at the individual level, expressed and experienced in different ways. So this is the same thing with alignment. This is why the system that I teach has 8 different parts, and it grabs from different wisdom traditions built into it. Because I believe we're at an age where all these wisdom traditions are available to people. Sometimes you can go down a street and there's a Buddhist hall there, there's a Hare Krishna hall there, there's a church there, there's a synagogue there, all within the same street. Now there's a certain sacredness to traditions and keeping them as they are, and there's certain individuals who continue to take those traditions and they honor their traditional way in its, to the best of their abilities, in the ways that they were taught in its original form. And then there are individuals like myself who are more weavers, who can work with different traditions and allow the creative force, which is the creative force of the universe, to weave these traditions together in a way that is honoring of them, in a way that is representative of the individuals doing it, speaking for myself, in an authentic way, that feels in right relationship, in honoring of those traditions, and in honoring of the authenticity of the individual, as they work with those energies, as they work with the teachings. So your alignment may or may not look the same as somebody else's. Your alignment may, in many ways, allow you to move very deeply into a certain belief system or way of practicing. Maybe a yoga, maybe a religion, maybe a certain sect of witchcraft. I don't know what your individual way of being and relating to life is, how your expressions are. But there is an individual way that we all can align. And when you're in alignment, the universe supports you. This is another way to know when you're in alignment and when you're not. It's important to know these and to check in with them. This is why I have a system that I check in with daily. Because when you're in alignment, in some sense, you don't really care about testing if you're in alignment because you're already in alignment. You feel the opportunities everywhere, and there's a sense at which this will last forever because you're out of the sense of time. But then you fall out of alignment, and you can be out of alignment for less than 24 hours, and it can seem like an eternity because you're trapped in time, in the limitation, and in the ego. So when we have regular routine, ritual, a practice, and checking in with our alignment, we have anchor points throughout our day. So even if we're out of alignment, we're not out of alignment reason why I developed a very comprehensive system is because alignment is very comprehensive. Now I'm going to go through a bit of the system to give you an idea of how many levels there are to alignment. So the first part of my system is one love. This is alignment with love. This is something we do in each and every moment. This is something we can check in each and every moment. It's a state of being that we act from. And then the doing and the doer is no longer what it was. What it was referring to when we do or act from a place that is not love, it requires a different kind of effort. And the more we act from our ego, which is less based in love and more based in mind and identity, there's more contraction because the ego, in some sense, is just a series of muscular contractions paired with limiting belief patterns and conditioning. Whereas the true self is not a self in that ordinary, confined, or conceptual way. It's a more expansive, inclusive self, which is the all that is, expressing itself through the individual. But even as the individual is expressing itself in an individual way, a unique muscular pattern of contraction and mental formation, qualities and archetypes, there's less clinging or grasping to that. Whereas the ego has more of that rooting, that grasping nature, because its whole identity is wrapped up in that. And when we find alignment with love, love is both a connecting and a dissolving force. The dissolution is of the illusion, it's of the ego. When you love another individual, say your romantic partner, in order to connect with that individual, you have to dissolve. You have to blur the boundary between what is you and what is them. And I don't mean to release healthy boundaries, and we all need to have those as individuals at a certain level. But I mean the boundary of the deepest part of your love connecting with theirs, and there's no need to have a boundary there because it's safe. It's safe to love at that level. It's safe to connect at that level. There doesn't need to be guarding there. So when we're aligned with our one love, we can act from that place of inspiration. I had this thing where I was making a big decision about my schooling, and it was a multi-year program. And I wasn't sure if I should take this course, and part of it was because I wasn't sure if I wanted to pay that much money and have that kind of commitment, which meant I couldn't do X, Y, and Z. I wasn't sure if the school was fully aligned for me. I was having doubts in myself and the practice and in the teachers and the teachings. And I wanted to just ask myself, okay, let's make a decision, yes or no. There was no clarity. I knew I needed to listen to my heart. So I asked the decision and then I meditated. I sat for some time. Still no clarity. Fuck. Okay. Leave it. Carry on with life. The next day I asked myself, okay, I'll ask myself and then I'll dance. Because there's like stuck energy. My nervous system is processing. It knows the answer, but it needs to make a determination, this or that, left or right. So if I move my body left and right and move around, I'm going to help to find alignment. I'm going to help to connect with myself. Because the answers are within. I can't Google this. I got to look within, so I need to get within. So I need the mind to go deeper into the body. So I dance and dance and dance, and then I come to stillness. Okay. What's the answer? Yes or no? Nothing. Oh, fuck. Okay. Now I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, am I this disconnected from myself, from my truth? Can I not know this answer? So the next day, okay, I'll go for a walk. Ask the question, Should I do the school? Okay, go for a walk. Walking is great. Helps us to find alignment, being a part of the earth, connecting with the sky, nature, connecting with our senses. Great way to find alignment, right? Walking. And I don't know if this was the point. I'm just kind of creating this as a story so you can follow along. I did all these things, but I don't know if this was sequentially how it happened and where. But I began to get the sense, yes, I'd like to do it. But I could only get there for a moment, and then I would doubt myself, and I would be like, maybe no. So I was like, okay, kind of got a yes, but not enough to confirm it. And meanwhile, the deadline for signing up for this program is looming within like 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go see a friend. So I hung out with a friend, and we had a chat. Now, I can't ask her to give me the answer, but she can offer me reflections and be a mirror. And she did. She was amazing. She held the space for me. I felt really grateful to have the resource of this friend, this beautiful person in my life who I care about and who I have such a deep connection with, who helps me to be in alignment. Because our alignment is not just us. There are the whole life around us, and what we're most connecting, who we resonate with, helps us to know ourselves, helps us to see. And as I was talking to her, I was able to say some pros and some cons. And as I was saying them, I could say these things on my own. And I could say them in a mirror, and I can say them out loud, and I can feel how it resonates in my body, the truth of it. But I could listen more deeply, and I could hear with a greater acuity my truth as I was speaking with her. And I began to see, yeah, I think I'd like to, but I also came up with a lot of doubt too. So I began to doubt myself, and I thought, maybe no, actually. Maybe no. So I went and saw another friend. Did the same thing. I thought maybe yes. But it became really strong yes, which was interesting. Because I'd gone back and forth. It was feeling like a yes and a yes, and then it went really no, and then it went really, really yes. And this process continued, and I did a number of other things that helped me to find alignment. And by the very last day, the course was the next day. I should have told them I wanted to sign up weeks ago. The very last day, I went in and I messaged her, and I finally found it. It became crystal clear. I was like, yes, I want to do it. And I messaged her, and I was like, can I still sign up? She's like, yes. I was like, okay, let's do it. And meanwhile, as I was doing this, there were many signs from the universe. This was a Qigong program. And I went to the thrift store, and I found this beautiful, traditional Chinese cloth. Whatever, I don't know what kind of, it's not a kimono, it's not a this, it's not a that, anywhere that I know. But it was beautiful. I would never wear it to an ordinary event, but there's a lot of festivals and things I like to go to, and this would be a fun thing to wear. And then I found this beautiful piece of art as well that really called out to me, which is the traditional dragon and phoenix piece of art. And there's all these other things poking into my mind, and I could see them as symbols that represented that pathway, but I wasn't certain until I was certain. Retrospectively, I could see that the universe was guiding me through these synchronicities. So I share all this because that process, going through all of my resources, really helped me to identify how I find alignment. When I'm out of alignment and I'm out-resourced, I have my yogic practice, I have meditation, I have nature, I have my friends, I have dance, I have writing, I have my alignment system. I have many things that can help me to stay in track. And my work is to continue to deepen my relationship with my heart. And when I went through that process, it was a major shift in my life because I realized I was disconnected from my heart. I couldn't make that clear decision right away, as I have in the past for other big things, because I was living out of alignment for a little bit there. And fallen off track, and it's part of life. It comes and goes because we experience contrast. We experience what we don't want, so we know what we do want. So it's not that we're truly out of alignment. We're just choosing to experience something so that we know what we want. And it also goes that to the degree we experience something we're resistant for, we can, in some sense, slingshot, like a rubber band in the opposite direction. So it's not that you're in alignment and it's just like the steady stream upwards. Sometimes we, from a higher place, of course, choose to go into contrast, to go into that which we don't want, to know what we do want. So, jumping back to the 8-dimensional holistic alignment coaching system. This is a system that I developed to help individuals find their optimal alignment. So we're speaking about one love. It's connecting with the heart, because this is our primary compass for alignment. There's a beautiful phrase about connecting the head and the heart. It's the ultimate journey. But it's also about connecting the enteric nervous system, the second brain in the abdomen, the gut brain, which in the Chinese medical system you could in some way equate to the lower dantian, the middle dantian being the heart, the house of spirit, and the upper dantian being the spirit palace, the higher center, the brain. And this is when body, emotion, heart, and mind are all aligned. And these are, in some sense, metaphoric and also quite literal. Because when you are aligned, these aspects of your nervous system are oscillating or vibrating in a certain sense in coordination. We call it incoherence. Because sometimes different aspects of you are going in different directions. For example, your heart may lead you one way, but your genitals might lead you another way. So there's this calibration process of aligning the multiple different dimensions of who we are. And the more we can pull together all aspects of ourselves, then we can truly be one-pointed, meaning we are present in the moment, and our actions become that much more powerful in the world because we're total in them. It's like being in a relationship, but still having desire for other men or women. You can't fully show up to that relationship in your entirety because there's pieces of you that are unintegrated. So the work of finding our highest alignment, because there's degrees of alignment, is about pulling together all these pieces. So my comprehensive system is a scaffolding. One love is the most important. This is your spiritual relationship. This is connection to your purpose. This is connection to God. This is the highest point, and it's the point to always start with, to always center yourself on. Otherwise, the other aspects can begin to pull you from your center. This is the center. 2 is the 2 fundamental forces of yin and yang. If you're out of balance with your breath, inhale and exhale, with your nervous system, parasympathetic and sympathetic, there's no way you can be in alignment. How can you be in alignment if you're way off center? The easiest way to enter into this and to find balance and harmony is to balance the breath. The breath coordinates the nervous system. Nervous system helps to coordinate all other systems in the body. Balancing the breath balances your mental, emotional state, as well as the physiological functioning of your body. You can shift the breath to help your body to relax, to excite the body, to balance the body. Your alignment is being broadcasted by your breathing. Because how you breathe is how you live. How you breathe is how you think. How you breathe is how you feel. So teaching breath awareness is something very foundational to what I teach in my coaching system, because as we become aligned, we want to be able to maintain our alignment, which means we need resilience, which means we need to have a moment-to-moment tool that's with us in each and every moment, that can profoundly change our state of consciousness, which can shift us if we do get into negative emotion, if we throw ourselves out of balance. The breath is that tool. Also in there, I teach movement and meditations, but they can be sometimes less accessible. We can't always jump up and down and say who to rapidly shift our energy if we're in a business meeting. But taking a few deep breaths is always accessible and nuanced. And the more we work with the breath, the more powerful it becomes. As both a teacher of where we're at, in terms of our alignment, in terms of our mental, emotional, and physical health, but also in terms of a change agent. A change agent that allows us to shift. Number 3 is the 3 choices, which I've talked about. Let's just talk about the first 2, the optimal and the suboptimal. The suboptimal is when we choose to just act in a selfish way, taking actions and behavior courses in life that orient our destiny towards what is serving most to us. Whereas the optimal choice is a higher choice, which takes the awareness of what is best for you and the collective, the all that is, your family, your community, the earth, the cosmos. The more aligned our actions they are, the more they benefit the all. So just as we're continually moving into higher and higher alignment, we are raising the standard of our choices to be of more and more benefit for the all. 4 is the 4 directions. Actually, one more thing on 3 is the 3 realms. In my system, I use a counting system 1 to 8, and each of them can stand for many things. That's why sometimes it's confusing when I talk about my system, and I can share so many different pieces, and there's different levels to it. So what I'm trying to do with many of these podcasts is share different aspects of it. My hope is not to confuse everyone as I talk about different pieces, but as I continue to work with this system, I use it as a guidepost, because 3 can be the past, the now, and the future. It can be the phases of creation, maintenance, and destruction. It can be many different things, and the more things that I can be aware of and track, I can notice what stage am I in? Am I in a creation phase of my life? At what level? And where am I creating? Where am I maintaining? What needs to be destroyed? Am I in the past? What aspect of me? Emotions? What are the stories? The more that I can track these things, I have anchors, flag posts, to pull me back to center for more awareness, for more consciousness. And one of the ones in the 3 is the 3 realms. And the realm, this is from Qigong, is heaven, man, and earth. Man represents the human realm, the heart. Earth represents, in the shamanic worldview, the underworld. And then the heavens represents the upper world. Now, there are energies from heaven, which are the yang energies, which spiral down in a clockwise direction. And then there are yin energies from the earth, the feminine, Pachamama, which spiral up in a counterclockwise dimension. Without going too deeply into the shamanic energetics of this, know that your orientation to these energies and your awareness of them is part of your alignment. Just as it's important to have an aligned spine for optimal breathing and the functioning of your body, your awareness being like a spotlight. Think of your awareness and your intention as a spotlight in which you are aware of. Picture as like glowing. So if you look to anything in your room, there's like a beam going out, and you can become aware of it. And when you're aware the forces of nature, you're aware of the living, breathing cosmos that is all around. And the more we can become aware of this as a moment-to-moment experience, we're expanding our consciousness, so we're not just aware of our personal mind and body, but of the external forces that are all around us, that are truly one of us, and that contribute to our creation, maintenance, and the destruction that is happening within us. And the more that we can become aware of the forces of nature and the movements of the stars, the easier it is to have the optimal decision at play, because we're taking into consideration more than just ourselves. And we're practicing this through our awareness of the all that is. If we want to truly take the perspective of living from the place of the all that is instead of the ego, this is not just an idea. This is an experience. So we begin to experience ourselves as the all that is. So by expanding our awareness and consciousness to perceive that which is above and below us, that which is beyond the personal mind and body, we're integrating that into our experience as us. And as we continue to loosen our identification with the personal mind and body, we will begin more and more to experience the all that is above and below and all that is around us as us, including the other people, animals, and all the beings and spirit beings, etc., that are in this manifest reality. Number 4 refers to the 4 directions. The 4 directions refers to the 4 cardinal directions. Once again, this is an alignment cue. So there's your spine, your heart, your lower dantian at the center of gravity in your lower abdomen. And you can know what is in front of you, which is your front body and the energetic space that is in front of you, and the energetic space that is behind you, to the right and to the left of you. Because we live within these 4 cardinal directions, including above and below, and the space within. There are 7 directions. And then there's also the space coming from within, shining out, which is the 8 directions of perception. There are many different Qigong systems and meditations that teach us to become more and more aware of what is above and below and the 8 directions. This is why we practice standing meditation for so long. And there's many things we're doing in standing meditation, different meditations within the meditation. And one of those is the 8 directions of perception, which is learning to perceive from all angles. And this is like a bit of a superpower when you develop it well. Think of a master martial artist, or someone who knows the basketball court so well that they don't have to look around to see where all the other players are. This is an individual who has an awareness of his perceptual field, in some sense, in a 360-degree way, so that he can be aware of all the other players. And this is because this is the capacity we have for our consciousness to be aware, our nervous system, to pick up energy and information from our environment. Now, he's done that basketball player example, through his training, or a martial artist through their training. Same thing with Qigong, we learn to train ourselves in this way, but the intention can be for martial arts, but it can also be for this more, let's say, spiritual intention of expanding our awareness and disidentifying with the personal ego and center, with that highest aim of experiencing the all that is. A little different intention. It's kind of like how the highest goal of yoga is enlightenment, and without that, you might become an incredible martial artist or basketball player through the techniques of Qigong, but you'll never reach enlightenment if that's not the ultimate goal. So when we have that intention, we can align with that, and the transformation happens in a different way. The same thing with the 4 cardinal directions. These are the spaces around us, and the more that we can become aware of these, one, it puts us in the present moment. We have a culture that is very much consumed by computer screens, which pull us the awareness and attention, that spotlight, out of ourselves and onto a screen. And so much we're pulled into mind. Mind puts us into time. Mind puts us into our conditioning in many ways, in an easy way, because we're playing those roles and identities. And we're less in the empowered moment of presence, embodied presence, aware of our surroundings, actually a part of our environment. So like going through these alignment cues, we're attuning to the present moment. So that means we're out of the past. When we're in the present moment, we can actually make the decisions that change our destiny. We can actually make the decisions that empower our actions, so our totality is behind them. Like the example of the man who's in a relationship and still desiring other women. He can't be total in that relationship. The more total you become, all of your actions become more potent, whether that's in business, whether that's with your family, that's with your love. The success behind your actions becomes easier and easier because you're showing up more fully, more totally. 4 also refers to the 4 directions: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. These are all aspects to which we can align to. Let's get into the 5, which is 5-element theory, and specifically we'll piggyback off of the 4, which is emotions. So in the 5-element theory, we have 5 negative emotions which are associated with the 5 yin organs. This is anger, anxiety, worry, sadness, and fear. Awareness of these is important because when we're in alignment, we're not really experiencing these, and if we are, they're not throwing us off our center. But when we're out of alignment, typically these are going to be altering our, let me describe that and say it's common to have negative emotions, and those negative emotions will drive behavior. And to the degree we're unaware of this, we're going to be resourcing ourselves with our control patterns for numbing, and our actions are going to be guided to pretty well put a band-aid on fixes without getting at the root cause. So the more that we can become aware of the underlying emotions that are driving our behavior, then we can take charge of our mental emotional state. When we're in alignment, we're in control of how we think and therefore how we feel, because how we think is how we feel. Before you feel something, you have to have a belief about it. This is always happening. For most of us, it's happening. And because we're not in the present moment and we're not aware of what's happening as it's happening, we're thinking things and believing things and we're feeling them, and we're a victim of that. We're not in control of our thoughts and our feelings. So then we're just riding this roller coaster of reactivity towards the world. Whereas when we put ourselves as a conscious and deliberate creator, we're perceiving life at a higher level, at a moment-to-moment level, which is not out of harmony with the present. It's in tune with it, like dancing with it. And because we're present, we're thinking things as they're happening, and we're noticing those thoughts and how they make us feel. And then there's choice as to whether we want to continue on that thinking pattern and pathway. And if it's not fruitful, if it's not what we prefer, there's opportunity. And there's many tools and techniques we can use to clear that negative emotion and shift our mind into that which is what we prefer, which is in alignment. And the alignment, the result of that alignment is you feel good. How to know if you're in alignment? You feel good. You feel the opportunities, like there's nowhere to go, like you're in alignment with your purpose, like you're inspired by actions instead of compulsive, timelessness, selflessness, and the universe supports you. It feels good. If you feel out of alignment, anger and worry, sadness, and once again, it's not like we don't go in and out of alignment, and that's part But just it's good to know when you're in a more contracted state than an expansive state. Because part of alignment is going out of alignment. So it's not something we need to like shake our finger at and go, oh, bad, I'm sinning in a negative, derogatory way. But it is an awareness point to check in with why we're experiencing that, so that we can recognize it and feel it, not just try to, in a toxic positivity way, jump into the positive. We can recognize where we're at and why we're there. We can understand the belief systems, the negative and limiting belief systems that call forth those negative emotions. We can recognize those patterns, those old stories, and then we can do the work to rewire them, to understand where they came from, their benefit, receive the wisdom, and then shift our mind into the higher perspective, which is in alignment with our true nature, which is in alignment with the laws of the universe. 6. 6 refers to the 6 zones of the body. The legs, first chakra, the hips, second chakra, the core, third chakra, the heart and arms, fourth chakra, the neck, fifth chakra, and it's like the forehead region, but you can say the whole head is the sixth chakra, and then the seventh chakra is out of the body, and it's not really a body zone. Are these aspects of your nervous system and your physical body in or out of alignment? If there's any imbalance, contraction, habitual stress or tension, imbalance in an organ system in a respective region, these relate to your 7 chakras, which we're going to talk about at number 7 with the 7 chakras. But just as a alignment point here, once again, a reminder, your physical alignment is very much intertwined with your mental and emotional alignment. 6 also refers to the 6 holistic health principles, which the 6 holistic health principles, the 3 choices, in some sense, the first 1 to 4 is very much inspired by Paul Chek's system. And the 6 holistic health principles are breathing, drinking, eating, moving, sleeping, and thinking. These are all aspects of our alignment. I mentioned breathing already. Drinking. Our body needs to be hydrated. It's either hydrated or it's not hydrated. That's a basic 2 forces assessment of are things in or out of alignment. If you're in alignment, you're hydrated. That's pretty simple, right? Eating, yes. Moving. Are you doing the right types of movement? Your body needs both movement and stillness. Now, in general, this is how people live their life to some degree as we move during the day and sleep during the night. But if you want to optimize yourself, there are ways to do this in a more deliberate way, in a more precise way. For example, in Qigong, we practice a lot of stillness. Stillness develops inner stability and it cultivates Qi. So we work with deliberate periods of stillness to build energy to develop our practice. The idea behind the yoga shavasana is to come into activity and rest, and that's a growth cycle. Most people have 1 growth cycle per day, which is they move all day and sleep all night. Whereas if you take a deliberate 75 minutes, you move for 60 minutes and rest for 15, that's like a cycle of growth. And think about if you practice like I do multiple times a day, that's 4 growth cycles of movement relative to someone's 1 growth cycle. Because if you're moving all day and you only rest during the night, rest is when you actually grow. This is the benefit of the practice. So there's an intelligent way to oscillate between movement and rest, which can accelerate your growth. This is a little bit about movement intelligence, but there's many more aspects to movement intelligence, which I'm not going to go over, but just think of this as another alignment point. Thinking, thoughts are either in alignment or out of alignment. Negative, recursive thinking takes us out of alignment and into old patterns, whereas we dream affirmative thoughts, which are in alignment with our goals. This is going to put us in alignment. Another piece here. There's a difference. This is something I was exploring this morning that I haven't fully processed, so it's coming out here, and we'll see how full this idea is. I had this thought that there's a difference between thinking thoughts and receiving thoughts. Thinking thoughts is work. It takes energy. It's quite draining. It's mental processing. Part of our intellect, the aspect of our mind is active. And when we think thoughts, in general, most thoughts are recursive, meaning they're circular. And the way that I visualize that is we're thinking things that we already know, and we're trying to process them. We're trying to integrate that information, so we're repeating it over and over again. This could be a story we tell ourselves. It's not something new. Or it's like when we have new ideas, but they're not truly new. They're just like recycled new pieces of old ideas put together in different ways, but they're not truly new. That's like thinking. We're just like mixing what's already within our energies together. And this is a different process than I experience when I receive thoughts. And I receive thoughts when I'm in a receptive mode and when I'm in alignment. And then thinking thoughts in that way is, receiving thoughts in that way is like standing under a waterfall and the thoughts are just pouring over. But they're not coming from within me, as in my nervous system is processing this information that's already within. It's like they're coming from a different aspect of the universe and it's flowing through me. And just like being under a waterfall, I can allow it to move by me and I can stay present in my body. Whereas when I think thoughts, I become more disembodied, I find, and I become more in my mind, and my energies literally flow up into my head rather than flow down through my whole system. Whereas when I receive thoughts, I can be fully embodied, and the thought isn't so attention grabbing that it pulls me away from my body and my embodiment. It allows me to be fully present, and because it's like water flowing, there's less attachment in that metaphor. I can just allow thoughts to flow by me. So even if I'm thinking, it's not taking that energy because it's not coming from me as the sense. And when I receive thoughts versus thinking thoughts, this is typically my most creative thinking. It's like my soul or the universe is pouring down this information rather than it having to be created from my ego, from my nervous system, my brain. I haven't really thought this through, so I don't know where that other part comes from, but you kind of get the sense, right? You've had moments, like I'm a writer, and my best writings, or my favorite writings at least, I just sit there, and everything just comes out, and I'm a witness to it. And then when I read it again, it's kind of like I'm reading it for the first time, because the first time it came out, it's just like energy flowing through me. I'm not processing it at that level of mind where I'm really going into it on a conceptual level. I'm kind of writing it down like it's a dance move, and I'm just in it. And then when I go back, I can read it as if for the first time, and then I can really process and understand it. Whereas if you were to ask me to write an essay on dinosaurs, I don't know a lot of dinosaurs. I don't know any dinosaurs, but I don't know a lot about them, and I would have to look it up, and it would be a much more mental, and it would take more energy. And the state of receiving thoughts that I'm describing is also the flow state. This is also another way of talking about being in alignment. And there's certain things that you do that allow you to be in alignment. This could be knitting, this could be sports, this could be any activity that allows you to feel timeless, selfless, inspired action. Like it's purposive, like it's in alignment with your purpose would be a better way to say that. Like there's nowhere you'd rather be but doing what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to, in some sense, be a part that you can see as directly connected to your enlightenment, but it is, because you can fully be there and you're in alignment. And this is one of the things I had to get over when I first started looking to be in alignment and having so many spiritual practices. I thought, oh, doing yoga or meditation was the best way to be in alignment. And don't get me wrong, they're very intelligent systems, which I use as often as I can, which is almost every moment of every day. But just because those systems are available doesn't mean that's what I need to stay in alignment. My work in recent months has been actually to break the pattern of being in practice and do something that I don't as often do, like just not do the practice and read a book, because that's actually what I needed to do to receive a certain amount of information, or go call a friend, or do something out of my ordinary control patterns, which have been unraveling because I realized a lot of the times I use them as a numbing agent to avoid emotion, because you can do that with meditation, rather than actually addressing the emotion and moving past the patterns that I've been operating in, which have kept me in a certain routine. But life has been asking me to expand and open new doors and be in the present moment and truly check in with what is going to bring me into what am I excited about? Like, am I actually following my heart? Am I actually listening to the moment-to-moment magnetic pull of my heart, which is drawing me in the direction of alignment? Instead, am I just trying to practice spiritual things because they're spiritual? So there's that fine-tuning, and it's a fine-tuning. It's always something that we're looking to optimize. That's why I track so many things as best as I can, as often as I can, because I want to fine-tune everything, because at the higher levels, everything becomes so important. Every breath, every subtle little alignment, just like in yoga, you notice when you've been practicing for a while, if your pinky toenail has a long toenail on it, it might throw off your whole asana. I don't actually know that degree, but you get the idea, right? If you're working at the highest level, for example, there are many times where I work for, in December I worked for 22 days straight, doing like 12 to 14 hour days of constant movement and activity and all these things. If my diet's off, I notice it. If my sleep's off, I notice it. So working at the high level, we need to be very, very precise in everything that we do. And this is our alignment. And the more alignment we become, the more aware we become of all these little things that throw us in and out. And this is us developing our very intimate relationship with the moment-to-moment reality as it's unfolding, because it's offering us everything we need to know. There's a path there. Every problem that we have, there's an opportunity. There's a way. There's a will. There's a way. There's something to get through it. So when I come to challenges, I can't be complacent. I can't just be in my regular routines of yoga or whatever it is that keep me comfortable. I need to be awake and alert. Next is the 7 chakras. 7 chakras, they're so expansive, I'm not going to go deeply into it. But as an alignment system, these are physical, emotional, energetic, mental, all domains. They relate to the vertical axis of your spine, as well as your energy body. Your first chakra related to your safety and your security. If you're out of alignment with your finances, it's hard to be in alignment. This is a foundation. If you're out of alignment with your tribe, with the earth, it's hard to have stability. Why? Because the relationship here is not just with the energy of your environment and your tribe. It relates to your physical system and your legs. People who have chronic instability with finances and grounding are very unstable in the lower half of their body. They often can't stand properly. They'll have to lock one knee or be very unstable in their balance. This is a physical manifestation of the underlying energetic underpinnings. There's so much more, but I'm just going to briefly go through these.
2 is relationships and sexuality. We talked a little bit about sexuality. If your lower order desire for pleasure is too dominant in your system, and it isn't, let's say, secondary, I don't want to say secondary, it's not in alignment with the higher desires for purpose and serving the all, then those lower desires will pull you into selfishness, which is not the optimal decision. It's easy to fall out of alignment when we're too much chasing pleasure and personal desire. 3, Manipura is our power center. It's our personal code of honor to self-esteem. And if we're not in alignment, because self-esteem is our own self-perception. No one can build up your esteem in a way that is truly long-lasting and has the depth that is true self-esteem, which is a representation that you are a perfect soul, and wherever you are at, that's where you're meant to be. You're beautiful as you are. If we can't root ourselves in that fundamental understanding, there's no hope for true self-esteem. And we can best bolster our self-esteem when we act in accordance with what we say in our values. This is where a deeper form of self-esteem comes, and it's not about the results. It's not about any point in time of wins or losses, because that all changes over time. We're going to win and lose. That's the nature of things. When we root our esteem and our personal code of honor with our integrity in our thoughts, our mind, and our deeds, and the things that we can control, there's stability there, and this builds a different fire within. 4 is love. We've talked a lot about this one. If you're out of alignment with your love, there's no compass. There's no alignment. 5 is truth. Throat space. If you're out of alignment with your truth, how you communicate, your expression, if you're holding back your truth, your words, your communications, it's hard to stay in alignment. We come into this world with truth. We come into this world with things to express. 6 is your psychic center, your mind, your imagination. If you're out of alignment with your mind, we've spoken a lot about. Let's just skip over that one. There's too much to go over in this. This system is too big. It's too big. I need to make it smaller. 7 is related to God. God is our fundamental relationship. How you perceive and understand God is how you perceive and understand life. If you perceive God to be unconditionally loving, that's how you will make your way through the world, because you'll understand that God as the universe supports you. If you believe that God is a judgmental God and God is wrathful and any number of things like this, you're going to walk through life with this understanding, and this is going to affect your alignment. That's how that one goes. 8 is the 8 limbs of yoga. Once again, way too long to go over. The points I would like to go over is the yamas and niyamas, just 10 points. I told you, this system is really big, and it's good. This is how I use it. I go through it as often as I can, and I make a lot of videos about it, so I do go through it often in that sense. But I do comprehensive alignments once a week or every once in a while. And then I just do a daily check-in, either my 8-point mudra system, which I posted some videos on, or I do major ones involving my goals and my dreams. And then I work with the system intuitively. When I start noticing that I'm out of alignment, then I come back to the system more, and I do a full check-in to see what pieces are out of alignment. But so long as I'm living in alignment, life has more flow, and I need to tap into the system less. But if I'm not regularly tapping in, it's easy for little pieces to go up and go unnoticed. And then all of a sudden it comes to a point where I got like 15 pieces that are quite unnoticed. So the more I can be on top of it, the better it is. So let's have the yamas. I'm going to go over these quickly. Truthfulness, non-harming, non-covetedness, non-stealing, and the right use of energy. So simple, right? If you're lying, you're harming others, you're jealous of others, you're stealing from others, and you're using your energy unconsciously, it's hard to be in alignment. And then niyamas, discipline, purity, equanimity, self-study, and surrender. These are qualities. If you're not disciplined, well, you're not moderating your energy, kind of builds into the yama there. If you're not clean, things get out of order pretty fast. It's pretty obvious. Equanimity, if you're always seeking pleasure and avoiding pain and discomfort, it's easy to get out of alignment. To stay in alignment, come to equal parts. In other words, equanimity. Contentment with what is and not excessive striving for pleasure and avoidance of pain. Self-study, well, how are you going to be in alignment and continue to keep in alignment if you're not self-aware? And surrender. Surrender is like love. Surrender is a beautiful virtue because surrender is the same when you're dying or when you're in pain or when you're giving way to ecstasy. Surrender is the same. It's a degree of totality. I mentioned totality a number of times. It's about our whole being surrendered into something. Even if it's something you don't want to do. If you can surrender into it fully, you can be aligned. For example, I worked for many years as a full-time dental hygienist. And I knew it wasn't the end goal of where I would like to be with my career. But it was a stepping stone that allowed me great flexibility. And when I was there and I was aligned, I surrendered unto the job fully and I became the best version of myself and the best dental hygienist I could be. When I was out of alignment, I was going, oh, I shouldn't be here. I'm above this. I'm better than this job. And I was a shitty dental hygienist and I wasn't happy to be there. So it doesn't matter where we are. There can be an awareness of where we would prefer to be. Maybe I, in those times, preferred to be somewhere else because I recognized there's a higher level of alignment. But so long as I kept in my mind and I wasn't present with what was happening now, I couldn't be aligned. So there's a recognition of where we prefer to be, but also an understanding and recognition of why we're at where we're at, and following through with agreements that we have with certain employers or contracts or the benefits of why we're doing those things. For example, that job provided me with the funding that allowed me to go to the schooling that I did and all the ceremonies and trips, and provide me the stability that when I was starting my business, I could temp and have the flexibility to not need to overly rely on one thing, that I could call upon that and have a number of different things that provided me security. Root chakra provided me with that basic security because, as I mentioned, if the security, the finances is off, it's hard to be aligned in any developed way, right? So alignment, once again, is an opportunity. Pardon me. Alignment is where we perceive opportunities, where there's nowhere to go. It's in alignment with our purpose, our dharma, the universal order. It's when we act from inspired action, resource from our authenticity, from our true self. The perception that I perceive is timelessness, selflessness, and that the universe supports us through synchronicities, through symbols. The universe is always supporting you. So, an encouragement to reflect on where you're at in your alignment today. What keeps you in alignment? If you'd like to know more about the holistic alignment coaching system, the long system that has many different versions that are much shorter, such as the one before, an aspect of the system that's a little bit more pocket size, or the 4 principles, which is a podcast that I just made, which the 4 principles are, in a compressed way, a beautiful way to stay in alignment. 1, follow your highest excitement and your greatest love. 2, do so to the best of your abilities without expectation. 3, stay in a regulated, positive, and grateful, receptive state. And 4, notice when negative emotions and negative beliefs come up so you can rewire them, recognize where they came from, and get back to alignment. I should have just made the whole video with that 4 things. Just kidding. That was the previous podcast I made. So this is more of the long form one. So blessings in your alignment. Reach out if you need anything. I own.